Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to another episode of Pinaka Live. Today I am absolutely excited and privileged to speak with Harpreet Makan. She is a director at Finance and Accounting Research at one of the leading analyst firms. A very warm welcome, Harpreet, and we are going to be talking about AI for finance function today.
Thanks, Mohit. Thanks for having me here.
Great. So first and foremost, how are you, Harpreet? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I think there's a lot of new stuff happening in the areas that I cover, I read about. So it is becoming, the work is becoming interesting.
Yeah, it's indeed becoming so interesting that okay, people were talking about automation, then we moved them on cloud, then we moved them
Yeah.
on analytics. Now there is new thing AI, and by the time people realize, okay, you know what, we proudly did this project on our finance and accounting systems. We implemented cloud. Oh no, but cloud is outdated now. We are on AI now. So
Yeah.
that kind of change is happening. So what kind of adoption you are seeing for something called AI? And I'm very respectful. Just 2 days ago, what happened with DeepSeek and the kind of washout that we witnessed into the US stock markets. But still, with that, what kind of adoption do you see with AI now? 2022 November, OpenAI changed a lot, became a
Yeah.
mainstream conversation rather than a kind of a futuristic thing. What do you see now around you?
Yeah, I think very, very apt point, especially what happened yesterday and in the last couple of days. I think that is something which is making AI like a common room conversation, right? Which is very interesting for me because generally, otherwise, I had to explain people what I do as part of my job. But
Yeah.
now I think people are becoming more and more aware and having more context behind some of these things related to AI. So, you see, honestly, like you said, right, 2022 was just the start. It was just like an explosion and everybody just started wondering what this is. People started reading about it. Then I think last year, if I were to talk, 2023 was more a year of exploring stuff. What
Yeah.
can they do? Can they do something? What will it take to do that? 2024, we saw some kind of fatigue settling in. Like people were like, okay, we are doing POCs, but not a significant ROI coming out of it. There are a lot of challenges, security issues, cost is going up. What will we do? And then comes 2025 with this new announcement that takes the entire cost thing out of the equation. At least seems like it.
So
So,
very interesting observation on that. First and foremost, 85% of the AI projects failed, right?
yeah.
Second,
Yes.
second important point is, I think a lot of the analysts, I think not analyst firm, but basically some consulting firms basically projected, okay, this is going to be a $15 trillion economic impact. $1 trillion wiped off in a single day.
I
Okay.
think if we keep talking about this particular piece, it can go on forever.
No, but
But it,
this is the interesting part. So, how do you
yeah.
see that people will reconcile to the reality? Because finance executives I have seen, they are by the very, it's very difficult to find a right word for it, but by their very nature, they are slightly conservative. They have to manage
Yeah.
risk, they have to manage numbers. Now,
Yeah.
when these kind of things happen, so they would be looking at their transformation director, okay, you are the one who promoted me a new AI thing, see what happened. So, how do you see that translating?
See, honestly, so to be very frank, at the end of every year, we do this study where we speak to enterprises, we survey them, and we try to understand how they are seeing the next year.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the end of 2024, what we saw was lot of positive sentiment among
Hmm.
enterprises. Like they're just expecting the market to be better, they're expecting business growth to be better in 2025, and therefore they are planning higher investments and stuff. Now, what I feel this latest announcement will lead to is, I think that will only lead to enhancing that positivity because they might feel that they now have more options. They can rebalance some of their cost stuff. What are some of the investments that they are planning? Obviously, it will open the box of questions also that their initial plans might go for a toss. They'll have to relook at their strategies and some of those things. But still, think it's just democratizing it, for the lack of a better word, right?
I have a few pointers to add, and this is what I was noticing it and observing it because this has last 2 days have been kind of a roller coaster of thoughts as to how, because I am closely associated with finance and accounting as well. I have spent a lot of time into the fort. Now the interesting part is earlier they used to plan some budgets. Okay, if we
Yeah.
put this application, we will need two GPUs. It will cost each GPUs, let's say $35,000 or $50,000 or whatsoever. Now suddenly there is a kind of a different operating model. We can do distillation,
Yeah.
which means something which was inaccessible.
Yeah,
is now accessible, and it allows you to have a better return of investment because there are
exactly.
alternative approaches existing. So
Exactly.
one natural emotion for a shocker or a surprise is always fear, which is understandable. We are all humans after all.
Yeah.
But one key component part I see that this will become easier for the businesses to embrace AI
Yes.
and
Yes.
use that into their finance operations. So, what kind of use cases you believe will be most valuable? I mean, this is a question I get a lot when I speak to executives. That
Yeah.
okay, AI is good. What should I do? Should I put a AP help desk chatbot?
Yeah.
What if the volume increases? I mean, it's gonna keep on rolling, and my bills and everything will go skyrocketing. But
Yeah.
what use cases do you see? Which are the most valuable use cases for
Sure.
AI in finance?
Sure. I think in the realm of finance and accounting, if we talk about in particular, then if I have to look at the three key towers of FNA, right? Order to cash, procure to pay, and record to report. I believe that there's lot of it, the potential is highest in the order to cash space,
Hmm.
very closely followed by procure to pay, and then followed by R2R. Obviously, there are now very high ROI use cases in R2R as well around financial reporting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But overall, if I have to compare these three towers, then that's the order that I believe exists, especially in terms of the sheer volume of use cases that you can do, right? For example, in order to cash, things around automating order processing. I
Hmm.
think one of the key pieces, credit risk assessment of customers. I think because order to cash is more customer facing, some of these use cases might have a greater impact or a quicker, faster ROI associated to it when implementing AI.
I know
Right?
this will get people excited, but 40 to 60% of the customer payments do not arrive on time.
That's what the challenge is. That's what makes it more even more lucrative. Okay, can this happen?
Yeah,
Can you can you reschedule? Like for example, when it comes, I think we're going ahead probably, but the latest buzzword is about agentic AI, right? So
agentic
it is
AI. Yeah,
about rescheduling some of those payment schedules automatically if you're seeing certain kind of inefficiencies crop in.
or
I think,
maybe a kind of a smaller side note. What we do at Pinaka, we preempt and anticipate the disputes and deductions in advance,
mhm,
so that they don't take place at all. So
mhm,
you are able to predict on the order and entry date itself
yeah,
what kind of issue will happen and how to address it. And that is the AI agent basically. That's the whole
exactly,
idea. Decide on
exactly,
your own. And there could be many, like from decision intelligence, maybe, I'm not sure if you know about it. There are already products in the market which can give you decisioning intelligence to say, I have received a customer for setting up. There is a new contract that is signed. Depending upon the entire credit history and multiple different dynamics, I can choose a dynamic pricing for that customer because I know this person,
yes,
what the payment behavior.
yeah,
And this is a classic
yeah.
example of agentic.
Yeah,
And I,
dynamic pricing, dynamic discounting, and then
yes,
predicting those payment behaviors to streamline the overall collection process. I think that's where we are seeing this.
yes,
Move.
and anything onto the journal side because this is the R2R guys always I've found they to be always on like literally vacation for 20 days. They slog for the 10 days. With all respect, I'm making the statement. Like when the
Yeah,
closing starts, they are the best guys in the world. But apart from that, they are just like having coffee, and you can see them onto the
yeah,
water cooler. It's a relatively easier life for them. But how do you see that happening in R2R? Anything on closing reporting, anything on
yeah.
journals, intercompanies? What do you believe?
Yeah. I think around automating journal entries plus reconciling accounts, I think that's where we see the most typical use case of AI particularly. But like
Hmm.
I said, right, if you compare, like in our parlance, we often joke that probably R2R is not the sexiest of all areas within finance and accounting, right? So basically you tend to look at O2C first and then maybe P2P and
Yeah.
then R2R. But I think even some of that tedious work that goes into the R2R space, right, that has a very high potential for adopting AI and on that
See,
front.
anything on generative AI for R2R? Do you see
I think
generative AI R2R?
I think on generative AI, if you have to ask me, the most interesting use case to me is that having that interface for the CFOs
Hmm.
to be able to answer questions and not need to go through big financial reports. And even the auditors or other people working in that domain do not need to create like tens of hundreds of pages of report for the CFO and then create a summary and then a summary and then a summary. I think
No,
that's
it's
what
like an interaction
really
layer
hurt. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
demand completely. This is an
Yes.
IBM term. They used to call it everything on
Yeah.
demand. So it's
Yeah.
on demand. It is whenever you want it. You don't need
Yeah.
to scroll through, let's say, 100 pages of a report to exactly go to one point. Saves
Exactly.
time for a senior executive where it values most.
Yeah.
Uh,
With an AI
I
assistant for the CFO, it becomes a very, very
I
important.
was even thinking about it, especially around the journals automation.
Yeah.
There could be a generative AI role as well, because ultimately you are doing some standard journals every single month. It can
Yeah.
create those journals for you. So it's a
Yeah.
human machine interface where the AI is creating the journals. I'm reviewing everything is okay. Please, do you mind posting it, Jarvis?
Exactly.
Jarvis,
Yeah.
can you post it? More like that. So
Yeah.
I see that happening. Procure to pay is a very interesting area.
Yeah.
It's like from that standpoint. So how do you see that? Like invoice processing is one, AP help desk exceptions,
Yeah.
cash payments, banking, those kind of
Yeah.
things. How do you see
To
that?
be very frank, when I was thinking about, you asked the question, right? From an ROI standpoint, which are like the top use cases, then actually use case around detecting frauds. I think that comes up top of the mind in the procure to pay space, right? And obviously there are others like selecting suppliers, then automating invoice processing. Those are some of the ones that also follow. But fraud detection, risk compliance around that, then managing that entire vendor portfolio of yours, right? The supplier
Yeah.
portfolio. I think Gen AI and generative AI can play a big role there.
I think one task, and I have been very closely working with a lot of business services or BPO firms which do finance and accounting outsourcing. I've spent a lot of time into that space. One of the biggest challenges anytime we are onboarding a new project was used to be, okay, the master data is completely in a bad situation.
Mm.
The vendor master data. Like if somebody says, okay, ABC company whatsoever, there will be like 100 entries,
Yeah,
same pin code, same city, same location.
yeah,
Now my guy will be confused, who is just like a small time person, analyst level guy, just trying to enter an invoice entry into the ERP system, which
yeah,
is the one I need to pick up. And most often than not, this leads to a lot of payment risks.
yeah,
This leads to a lot of other fraudulent risks. There have
yeah.
been instances where somebody
And
originally was, yeah, carry on.
and obviously delays, right? And which ultimately
Yes,
impacts the experience of the people who are doing it right, or the vendors who are waiting for those payments to come in.
I will not take the name of the company or name of the client, but I'll give you a very classic use case, and it as an example as to why basic things are the right things to invest on, like vendor
Mm.
master. Set it up properly, do cleanse it properly, have a governance. A poor person was processing that invoice. It was supposed to be originally a 37 pound invoice for a stationery. Ultimately, when it came, there was no PO. So the person reached out to the PO or to the buyer, saying there is an invoice that has come. The PO has written your name and there is a value and blah blah blah. And the person said, "Okay, please go ahead and process it. I'm on vacation." This is a very old case study, pre AI automation
Okay.
days case study. The total payment went out for 2.5 million pounds, approved by everybody.
Oh God.
Nobody looked at it, and ultimately it found out when we were trying to recover that money as part of the operations team. This person who used to run a small mom and pop stationery shop closed it, went to some other country, had fun. Uh, and the issue was what to do with this guy who made the mistake. I mean, if you simply shoot him point blank, this 2.5 million is not coming back. So
Yeah,
that is the kind of risk appetite. Now try to see what you were trying to do manually. AI can clean your master data for you.
yeah. Mm.
AI can detect the fraud prevalence for you. Uh, Tremendous power, but where do you believe we can fail?
I think that even before failing, right, that sheer challenge that people see in getting into that journey. Okay, when you are looking at that train from a distance, everything looks wonderful. But
Yes,
can you get onto it? Can you jump onto that bandwagon? I think that's where the challenge is, right? You need so much of governance in place. Firstly, the data in place, the right data in place to be able to train those systems, and
yes,
then the right kind of governance is place to make sure that the not so perfect things are not getting like exemplified. Amplified with by the use of AI. I think that's where the biggest challenge is. I think failure also might exist exactly at that place. With agentic AI, like I feel the picture seems all rosy, that the agents will have a goal and they will be able to take those decisions on themselves. But who do you question if something goes wrong? I think the accountability
accountability.
aspect of it is this the biggest piece that we are still to solve, is what I feel.
No, but also I see one thing. I would be very eager to listen to your thoughts on it. Like majority of the technology spending in the last 2 decades that I have seen, has been more hunch oriented or marketing driven. It has not been business case driven.
Yes.
Right. So there is nobody who is checking, okay, is my data in order? I'm putting a AI. Okay, what AI needs? AI needs data.
Yeah.
So is my data in order? Because if my data is not in order, before getting the AI tool onboarded, I would rather clean up the data and then onboard the AI solution. Do I know what is going to be the return on investment from this?
Mm.
Do I know what is going to be the? There is a very classic uh, generative AI dilemma that people talk about. So I selected a Gen AI for maybe a AP help desk or a customer help desk. Uh, Generative AI did very well in POC. When I deployed in production, the volumes were high and basically drained me out in cost because of the LLM and
Exactly.
the GPU costing and all that. This is a
Exactly.
very typical scenario which people scare. But the interesting part is what you're trying to do later as a reaction, you can do proactively,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So how do you see that? I mean, what I read a lot of the documents that you have yourself written as well, and that's the reason I said it's an absolute privilege to host you as part of Pinaka Live. But how do you see what are the, let's say, if there are top 5 leading practices that people must, or finance leaders specifically, people who are leading the finance departments, VP finance, CFOs, GBS heads, what are the top 5 practices they must adopt
Yeah.
before they really consider AI or any AI tool?
Yeah, I think a couple of them you kind of already alluded to. So I'll borrow maybe at least two from your
Sure.
what your conversation. It's more around having that right data in place, having a data strategy in place, right? What should your data look like? Where should it exist? What can you provide access to? What you cannot? Do you have the right kind of mechanisms in place to encrypt or to what is the hosting option that you want to
Yeah.
go with, right? Are you comfortable with the cloud depending on your industry, your regulatory landscape, etc.? I think the second would be around a business case,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of the times we talk about, okay, we have to do a business case. We look at what is the cost saving, what is the productivity improvement, what is the costs that you have to spend in procuring some of those solutions. But then you miss out on elements like people cost. You miss out on the elements like training cost. You even sometimes miss out on the benefits like soft benefits that the solution can give. I think looking at both tangible and intangible, both from a cost and benefit standpoint, and then looking at the business case more holistically, I think that would be the second piece. Third, I would start talking more from a solution or platform landscape also, right?
Hmm.
So nowadays, what we are seeing is having enterprise don't just look for, and I would not say we are seeing that, but I think enterprise should move in that direction. Is
Yeah.
we should not just look out for advanced capabilities like intent recognition, context understanding, some of those, but you need to look at some of the monitoring and analytics that is inbuilt into those platforms. Let's say around model training,
Yeah.
right? Model monitoring, or even on cost monitoring, the example you gave. After you reach a certain threshold, how are your costs eluding? Do you get automatic updates on that, or are you totally unaware and then you get a huge bill coming onto you? So I think looking for some of those governance monitoring related aspects, I think that would be my some of the other elements that enterprise to really care about.
This is such a brilliant and helpful list. It's like a nugget. People should keep this checklist as a CIO
Yeah.
or a GBS head by their desktop. Interesting observation. What happens, let's say you put a generative AI into some interface and somebody asks it a question, the generative AI hallucinates, go to hell.
That's I think it's extremely difficult to say how the person would react, because if it happens to anybody, it would be like a
Especially a vendor. I am asking, okay,
exactly.
where is my payment? $50 million. It says go to hell. You have asked me the same repeated question.
So in
So,
hands, honestly, I'll tell you. So till now, in a lot of our previous years' reports and research, we used to always talk about CFO priorities.
hmm,
And things that used to come at the top were cost, profitability, top line, revenue growth, even then ESG, compliance, those things are popping up. Lately, what we have seen is something called finance stakeholder experience. I think that is starting to take up shape, starting to appear in those top 5 priorities of CFO. And that is probably best suited because of this reason that you just mentioned, right? You need to really care about your suppliers, your customers, even your internal stakeholders, right? And how their experience is in into navigating all these finance processes.
today, if I really have to keep my business running, it starts with supplies. The kind of disruption supply chain is facing, I cannot ignore the pain of my supplier. I have
It's
to be before finding out which is a good company to do business with, I have to be that company myself.
Yeah.
Okay, it's an environment like that, because let's say if my supplier stops the supplies, my production line, my subsequent orders, entire supply chain goes for a toss.
Yeah.
Finding an alternative supplier might be costly. Middle of the night, if you find out a supplier and try to sign up something for them, they will be extremely pricey. Your entire margins, your entire commercial profitability, everything gone for a
Yeah.
toss.
And that
So
percolates to the customer as well, ultimately, right? You're not able
exactly,
to deliver your orders in time, and all of that starts happening.
you will not get a repeat order from the same customer because you have delayed, or the quality is not the same as you promised them to be. And considering the fact that there are a lot of options, there is always a second company which is looking out to grab your piece of the pie.
Yeah.
It's not a rational approach to do. So it
Yeah.
is all starts with suppliers. So, everybody talks about caring for the customer, care for
Customer.
your suppliers, care for your stakeholders.
Yes.
Create those provisions. Let's say if a supplier is calling them middle of the night, where is my 50 million payment? They run a chat GPT or a kind of a simpler, I would say, deep seek query now, deep seek query
Yeah.
about the status of the invoice, and they are able to take that call.
Yeah.
Right now, because of the way the data ecosystem, and I think one aspect you highlighted about was the data ecosystem. I have a cross question on that. It's a tricky one.
Mhm.
Last 30 years, inorganic growth has been the primary model for growing.
Mm.
People have grown acquiring companies. This has
Yeah.
led to multiple systems.
Yeah.
You have for one business unit SAP, you have for another business unit Oracle, you have for another business unit something else in the world.
Yeah.
Data ecosystem is not ready for AI right now, is it?
See, even before the AI piece came into so much of limelight, what we started hearing was around that application rationalization of sorts, right? That use case in the IT side of things, that CIOs are really worried on. They have like hundreds of applications floating in their landscape, multiple of them doing the exactly same task, and the users being like fed up of just jumping from one to the other and making single entry in multiple systems, especially with the inorganic piece that you mentioned, inorganic growth, when multiple companies get merged or get acquired. That's the biggest challenge. So I would say even before this thing came, this became like a matter of concern for CIOs.
No.
And now with the AI piece, what has happened is just that fear of missing out has popped up, and everybody is just starting to explore AI and do POCs and stuff without really understanding if their data landscape is ready. I'm not saying it's not ready for any organization, but you need to identify places where you are ready.
Hmm.
Right? So there might
Very
be certain
important point.
pockets within your organization where you are ready from a data standpoint, right? Where more systems are digitized, there is more rationalized landscape, and therefore those are the places that might give higher ROI for you. Even though if you ask an industry expert, we might not put it as a high ROI use case, but for you that would make greater sense.
No, but it is a perfect, it's very well articulated, Harpreet. This is a brilliant point, because I see a lot of those CIOs who took the pains and wrath of the world for force fitting a single version of Truth ERP transformation project onto their organization, and have already been through journey. So there is just one system.
Yeah.
Everything is rationalized. There are duplication prevention, master data governance controls, everything in place. They would have been the most evil guy in in their companies for that period, 18 months, 24 months, whensoever that ran.
Yeah.
Today they would be smiling,
Yeah.
because they know how I can monetize this and put it on an AI and use this tremendous capability. Because ultimately, companies which leverage AI will be more profitable. Their unit economics will be much better than those who are not able to do so. All reasons respected.
Yeah.
There was not enough time, it was not a priority. All reasons are respected. But with the pace, the way it is going, it's yesterday, last year it was generative, today it is agentic, next year it might be, or maybe mid-year it might be something else complete.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very valid point. And does it mean that we are up for, I talked about ERP, so does it mean we are up for an ERP, new kind of an ERP, which is not enterprise resource planning but maybe predictive resource planning? I saw some videos of Oracle World where I really got excited, but they did not have much demo to showcase. Into There was not much of live demo onto finance side. They showed something on supply chain, and it's a brilliant tool. But are we up for a predictive resource planning kind of ERP?
I think that's a very interesting question, and the way you have put it. and honestly, being all the positive person I am, I would incline towards saying a yes, because I think at least that's something that's in horizon now, I would say.
Yeah.
We don't know the time frame when that will happen, but we at least have a thought process now around moving from those traditional ERPs, which are more like data aggregators or
Mm.
just data processing systems, to more ERPs that are more like decision engines, right? That do not just like aggregate and report stuff to you, that do not just move from like rule based stuff. They are more autonomous in nature, I think. And that's where, like you said, right, that transaction layer, that application layer will get impacted, is what we are seeing in the next couple of time, and we'll all have to wait and watch.
No, but it is like you called out something very interesting. I used to talk about it a lot in some of the conversations. So you have a system of record in the enterprises today, which is your ERP, CRM, HRMS. This is system of record. The job is to store information securely, provide reports when somebody needs it in the way they need it, whenever they need it. Okay. Then there is system of automation. So all your RPA bots, workflows will fit into that bucket. There is a system of analytics or a system of intelligence, you can call it, which is basically your Power BI type tools, Tableau, click dashboard. So I need some custom reports, analytics, which sits atop of it. Uh, there is no system of, I would say, AI or intelligence which can be, or a system of prediction, to be very different to call it, because this and all these three four layers, they still make the model very reactive.
Yeah,
I will have to wait for something to go wrong,
yeah,
only then I will be able to remediate it. I have tools to remediate it, but it doesn't stop from something going wrong,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I think from an ERP evolution standpoint, it is time for a kind of a layer of AI, which is more like a system of prediction. So if there is a vessel which is supposed to be stuck in Suez Canal, it should
yeah.
be able to tell me the alternative suppliers I need to get
But
my
when
production line going.
RPA gained a lot of traction, like a lot of providers, without naming anybody, started talking about self healing stuff.
Hmm.
And that time, it until today, like I'm covering this space from last 7 years, until today, that always seemed like a marketing term. Nothing in those solutions seemed like self healing, to be very very frank here. But now I think that is seeming like to become a reality, right? With the agentic AI stuff, how the example that you gave, right, is something is going to happen. If in finance we talk about, if there is some inefficiency in procure to pay P2B payments going to happen, then can you reconfigure those payment schedules and or
Yeah.
notify their suppliers so that they don't just keep hanging around? I think that's what we are moving towards, just from an ERP standpoint also.
No, we have a real moment in the sense because integration technologies over the last few years have become accessible,
Yeah.
more widespread, more accessible, more cheaper to adopt, number one. And I do see for areas like treasury.
Mm.
So if I'm doing a lot of hedging, I'm doing forward agreements, if I'm into floors and caps and those kind of things, and I have foreign currency exposures, like I'm a large business, just the currency conversion rate, the currency conversion charges run into millions of dollars every single year. If that kind of an environment is there, any slight movement, I can save money.
Yeah.
So I think we have got ears and eyes into places as far as finance is concerned, where it was impossible to have those ears and eyes, and that's what we are calling artificially intelligent in very finance parlance. But do you see some risks coming forth? Your view, especially from AI's adoption in finance and accounting function.
I think before answering the risk part, right? So our take on how we are, just to elaborate on your point that you made, which is very very apt today, right? The way we see FNA as a function to evolve, I think augmented finance or cognitive finance is something that we have started to see in reality at
Hmm.
a very decent scale. I would say a lot of organizations of different sizes are in that stage where you can call their finance function as either augmented by digital technologies or cognitive, in that sense that they're leveraging some of those technologies very well embedded. But I
Hmm.
think the next step in this journey would be move towards adaptive finance, where
Yeah.
where your processes can adapt to the changes that are happening either inside your organization or in the macro world. I think that is the key. That is our point of view, my take on how I see the finance function evolving. Obviously, with that evolution, and you need to adopt certain technologies, take certain risk, and then the challenges that accompany those are also are also plenty, right? You need, because what you are signing up for is lack of human oversight. So you're really excited that things will happen autonomously and you don't have a human agent need not approve each and everything with agentic AI coming in. But that lack of human oversight, you need to strike a balance,
Okay,
right? You need to be able to
it's coming
identify.
towards the end of the question, end of the session, but actually it's a natural question. Okay. Do you see AI accountant happening soon?
Happening soon, I think, makes the answer easier. I definitely see it. See, it's not now, like I said, right? Things are looking on the horizon. It's
Uh,
not looking like an impossible thing to happen. But I
yeah.
think timeline and how accountable that accountant is, like I said earlier,
No,
is something we can
I
shape up.
don't see an AI accountant, but I see like someone was talking about AI adoption in South Korea as one of the countries which has got the highest adoption. 1 out of 10 workers is already an AI worker. I
Hmm.
just read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know whether it is true or not,
Mhm.
but I see it happening like areas like reading the invoice image and keying in the invoice entry. Humans will not be doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So, or to say it the least, the tier one help desk calls with the job is just to inform the vendor who is calling, so and so date in payment run, your payment will get picked up, or there is an issue with PO, please speak to so and so person. This kind
Yeah.
of basic tier one activities will I definitely see. It's not an accountant job because there is no
Yeah.
judgment involved, but
Yeah.
I do see that happening. One another disruption will be a very difficult term to use for it to say, but I see one big disruption or one big, I would say, party spoiler is the quantum of virtue signaling that people do in the name of AI. So when everything is AI, then it means nothing is AI,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like they're, and as an analyst, as a director working with a leading prestigious analyst firm, it would be very difficult. I mean, you would be reached out by product companies. Okay, we have so and so AI, it will do magic and wonders, because they
Yeah.
want you to write positives for them, to
Yeah.
project them into the world, do the virtue signaling and stuff. How do you see that? How do you determine whether somebody is a real AI or a fake AI?
I saw a very, very recent example. Like yesterday, someone was showing us that we have done a lot of stuff on agentic AI, and this is what we are doing, and all of that. And after 15-20 minutes into that conversation, I was wondering there there is no really agentic in this what you are doing, right? Unless you have like a multi process or a multi workflow orchestration kind of thing involved, how can it be agentic? Because as far as agentic AI is concerned, you need to be able to manage or orchestrate those multiple workflows
Exactly.
to be able to get that task done and to meet that goal that you were designed for. I think similarly to your point, right, when generative AI came in, so when AI came in, right, a lot of automation use cases started getting positioned as AI use cases.
Yeah,
Then when AI generative AI came in, same thing, same pivot happened towards generative AI.
I know companies, Harpreet, and I guess you'll be getting the signal as well. You must have spoken with them earlier. They promote and brand. We did AI when nobody was doing AI, and it's a very ridiculous statement to hear, ridiculous statement to make.
See, I feel that AI is a place where you need to be go much more collaboratively. I think that's where like the benefit of all, like the benefit of the larger world, if I have to say, I think you cannot just keep competing against certain things. Obviously, I think everybody is doing something good. But in the rush of highlighting that you're doing everything good, you're even missing out on that something is what I feel. Because when we spend, let's say, a couple of hours with a provider, right, who is doing great work, what we realize is that there was those 5 minutes of conversation which was really unique about what they were doing.
Yeah,
But that just took 5 minutes of that conversation because in the rush of highlighting everything else. So I'd say you really need to understand what you are doing great, elaborate more on that, help your clients more on that front, and then be open to
I
partnering,
I think
exploring other
if you
solutions.
are an excellent automation player, that doesn't qualify you as a basic AI player. That's somewhere I think the threshold has to be there, because I have seen one particular customer came to me. They were practically in distress because they were working on a transformation roadmap. They had budget and everything. They had like 30 members of their team, and it's a very reputed company, Fortune 500 company. They came over to me. They said, "Okay, we just need some help." I said, "Yeah, sure. Tell me." They said, "Help us understand how will we deploy generative AI in cash application." Okay, I said, "It's not possible. You don't need generative AI in cash
Right.
application. What's there to generate? It's a simple automation use case, remittance advice, simply post it, match the invoice, you are done. Great. That is qualified as an automated cash application. No, 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 no. There was a cash application automation company which basically sold them the idea that the cash application has generative AI. They took approval, budget, and everything from their leadership on the idea. And then they came to me to help them understand as a domain guy as to how can that happen, because they were not able to comprehend how will it happen. And I said, that is not even possible.
And not even needed in that sense,
It's
right?
not
Like,
even
yes,
required.
it's not even
So
needed.
it's,
Yeah.
I think between AI automation, or let's say an intelligent character recognition, or let's say an analytics, or let's say just putting something on cloud and maybe orchestrating a workflow, I think this is the level of awareness that as a finance and accounting community we all need. That what is the right tool for something? Are we trying to kill a rat using a missile?
Yeah.
It's something that we have to think about. Is the
Yeah.
problem big enough? Is the scale there? Because if
Yeah.
I put it on a small scale thing, the cost economics will be bad, isn't it?
It'll never work, especially for
Yeah.
AI. It'll never work, right? Because the sheer effort in training those models to become accurate for your context, for your organization, for your use case, you will not end up getting that kind of ROI if you're not able to identify the right use case for you. That's why I say it's very, very contextual to your situation. You
Yes.
can learn a lot, but it's more about learning those practices, learning those frameworks or approaches than just picking up, okay, someone did cash application, okay, let me also do cash application. That's not going to work for you, right?
I just hope that those people are listening this podcast today, and they get a aha moment which is able to help them. But this has been an excellent conversation, Harpreet. I cannot thank you enough. I mean, this was a very fluent, excellent, and enriched conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of Pinaka Live. It has been a real
Thank
privilege.
you so much.
And for the viewers who are watching this, please stay tuned. We'll keep on bringing these kind of exciting episodes more and more. Thank you so much, Harpreet. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you again for having me here and the wonderful conversation.